for me, finding my voice was realizing that somebody else was keeping me from getting the one thing that I knew that I needed and I wanted. And I had the mentality that I was going to let nothing get in my way. I had gotten too far, and again, I've seen too many people get to that dissertation purgatory where they get stuck. And because they don't want to ruffle feathers, because they don't want to make people upset, or because they want to graduate, they didn't advocate.
Welcome to the Writing on My Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emanuela Stanislaus, doctorate coach and diversity consultant. I finished my doctorate in 4 years while working full-time, traveling the world, and balancing a busy social life, and now I'm on a mission to create community for other BIPOC women to complete their doctorate degrees. Join me as I discuss the ups and downs of pursuing a doctoral degree. I'll be sharing personal stories, and I'm bringing some friends along for revealing conversations about their doctoral journey and provide inspiration for others to level up as doc students. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Writing on My Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emanuela Stanislaus, and today we have another special guest in the guest chair to share a little bit about her journey. And I will go ahead and jump into her bio, and then we'll get the conversation started. So, Evingerlean D. Hudson, Ph.D., affectionately known as Dr. Eve, is a native of Charlotte, North Carolina, and a first-generation college graduate who earned her Ph.D. at the age of 28. After years of service in post-secondary education, she decided to switch gears and started her own social entrepreneurial journey. Dr. Eve is now founder and chief strategist of Evingerlean Worldwide and host of the First Gen Lounge podcast. Welcome to the show, Dr. Eve.
Well, hello, Dr. Emanuela. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited that you're here in the guest chair, not only because you're my soror, but because I'm a super fan of yours, of the podcast, and of everything that you're doing on the entrepreneurial front, from one entrepreneur to another. So, welcome.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm very flattered by that coming from you because you bad. I hear you a diva. I love it. But thank you for it. Really appreciate it. And I'm like, did you miss your calling? Because your radio voice, my, girl, you got it. You got it. It's beautiful. So I was like, dang, she do voiceovers. You need to be getting that money, sis.
Okay, another income revenue or another income stream come through.
Okay, yes. Go ahead and do them voiceovers for them podcast openings. You got it.
Thank you, sis. Well, thank you for coming on the show. And I want you to share with everyone a little bit about your PhD journey.
Awesome. So it was definitely a journey. I didn't have any intention in the beginning of going for a PhD. I didn't even know I was going to go for a master's. So let's even go back to that. So moved down to Mississippi right out of undergrad because I took a job working at a math and science school. And while there, realized I wanted to pursue higher education and learned that there were actually degrees in higher education that I could go for. And I was like, cool, I can do college forever. So while in my master's program, one of my professors, and actually in my stats class, that's what really gets me because you know how we run from stats sometimes. She said to me, you should consider going for a PhD program, be a great doctor. And I was like, what? Oh, she tripping. But she's like, we can probably get you money for school and everything too. And so I applied, just thinking whatever, because after this master's, I'm likely going to move and take a job in housing somewhere anyway. And I got in and kept going. And so, in terms of the journey, one that was very unexpected, but also made a lot of dreams come true because I thought the only way to be a doctor was to be a medical doctor, and chemistry and all that stuff just didn't work for me. But for what it's worth, I want to say as a first generation college graduate, being that I was one already far away from home, but two, still in this space where I was trying to navigate, had its challenges, but also had its rewards. While I was a grad assistant for most of the time, I did work full time for some time. Then I went back to part time, and then I wasn't doing anything at all but school. So, it's had its loops, but it was definitely a great experience, and so much so that I got out by the time I was 28.
And that's a huge accomplishment. First of all, just getting your doctorate, but then also getting it at the ripe age of 28. So kudos to you. And like even when you were sharing a little bit about your story, I realized that we have a lot more in common. My background is in housing as well, and
Mhm.
so I always love talking to fellow housing folks or recovering housing folks, as I like to say.
You know what it is.
Oh
Absolutely.
my gosh, that is, I mean, that's another podcast episode, but that, and then also just being encouraged to pursue your advanced degrees as a first gen student, which I'm still a first gen person through and through,
Yeah.
like as a first gen professional or whatever. And so, what was it about that conversation with your professor that kind of was the deciding factor in pursuing your PhD?
So for me, I had this belief at one point in my life that other people knew what was better for me than I did in some situations. And so I would find myself in a space where there were moments when individuals would ask me or say things to me, and I'm like, they can see something in me that I can't see in myself, so maybe I should. So even when it came to the PhD, and mind you, this was an older white woman in southern Mississippi who was telling me, a young black woman, that I should pursue something because she saw something in me. And even that felt rare to me because I grew up with a lot of teachers and educators who were black. And I had my thoughts about being in the deep south. So hearing her say that and knowing how much I thought about her just even as a person, I was like, maybe there's got to be something to it. And so that then allowed me to open myself up to the possibility of going into this program and doing well. And again, she was the stats teacher. So she was the one of the stats professor. So her classes were seemingly the hardest, but she also was the one who didn't talk out the side of her neck either. So if she said something, there was some truth to it. And I shared that because being first gen, there have been a lot of educators and mentors who have helped to shape my life and they've helped to guide my path. And it hasn't been or wasn't until I want to say the past 5 or 6 years that I really started to guide my own path in a way that I wasn't doing a lot of consulting with other people about what I should do, but more so consulting fully with myself, with my spouse, and then maybe asking for advice about things, but not asking for permission. So that was definitely the difference for me.
Awesome. And how did you go about choosing your program? Did you go to the same program that you attended for your master's, or did you do something different?
Absolutely. So I pretty much was in a feeder program to where it was really smooth to get into the higher ed program. And again, I just knew that I was going to be higher ed for life. That was the goal. I had it in mind that I'd one day be a college president. And so it all made sense. And again, college for life, like never going to leave. And so that program that they offered both had the PhD and the EDD tracks. And I went the PhD route, had a couple of breakdowns, wanted to go EDD. And I had, again, an older white male professor who set me down in his office one day and was like, look, he said, I know that you're a young black woman, you have a lot of potential. He said, get what you need, have all the tools and resources to make sure that nobody ever doubts you. And so, again, coming from this 60 something, 70-year-old white man who had seen it all, I was like, what? So what are these people saying to me? Because again, this is a new environment. I'm used to being at predominantly black institutions. And so to have still this affirmation and confirmation was really exciting. So I pressed on through and just realized it was like a class of stats different. And so I stayed the PhD route, knowing that for me and in my experiences, if I wanted to come back to a faculty role or do anything with it, that depending on who the gatekeepers were, the PhD could probably help. But even just having the tools, the knowledge of how to do certain statistical things. I mean, granted that now technology changes that, but it just gave me more confidence in even his viewpoint, to be honest. But at this point, it doesn't matter. I'll say that for real. But it gave me security at that point in my life. Just the idea of it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And those were actually his exact words.
That's so interesting that you talk about your mindset when you were younger with going with what people say, but then it also seemed like you had individuals that were kind of in different positions that helped you along the way.
Mhm.
Would you call those individuals mentors? And how did you seek out their advice?
Yeah, so I think a mentor doesn't have to be somebody who you're always up under. I think mentors is how you view what mentorship is, right? And mentorship is really nothing more than people giving you advice or some feedback on certain things that they may have experienced. And you're looking to them for, again, like that wise counsel. And so in these conversations, these people didn't have to be best friends or even people that may have said, yeah, that's my mentee. Although you may have others who are like, no, that's not how it goes. But I think so, because in these relationships, they were guiding me in some kind of way. Like you have these tenure track faculty persons who have had this long history of being in higher ed, who had a lot of success from it. Why would I not want to heed to their advice? But I say at the same time, seeking out mentorship, a lot of times for me, it's come from just having those very organic conversations. And then I find myself multiple times going to talk to that person or seeing what they think about something. And then over time, it's kind of like understood, like, I'm your person and you're my person. So I think mentorship, we don't always have to be so, you've got to be my mentor. It's a natural evolution in a lot of cases. And mentors look different for different things, because what I may look for or want for somebody who may be a professional or even now an entrepreneur is not what I'm looking for somebody who may be married and has been married for 40 years. And I'm like, I'm trying to get there. And so mentors don't have to be the only person, that one person does everything. You have mentors for different things. And so for me, it's just, I see what mentors as wise counsel. That's just how I look at them. And they can even be people younger than us, even those who have experiences that I don't have. They can teach me something I don't know. So I don't necessarily always just go looking for the mentor. A lot of times they may have said something or something may have happened. And I'm like, I really like that. I really like them. I want more. And then I'll keep showing up in a way.
I like that. Very practical advice for how to identify individuals, like looking for key things. Maybe it's key traits, maybe it's even key accomplishments that they've done that you kind of want to do. And I also agree to like, no one person knows everything that there is to know. And so you can learn from older people or maybe people in more advanced roles as well as those who are younger than you and your peers. So I love that. Thank you
Thank
for sharing that. Okay, so I am curious to know because you mentioned that you had some like ups and downs in the program earlier on, and wanted to know if you could share a little bit about that and what it was like being a Black woman pursuing your doctoral degree.
You gonna do that to me today. So for me, it was really, I never had an issue as a Black person being a student with my cohort. Let me say that. Because of the programs on campus, I am almost going to dare to say we had the highest number of Black students enrolled. And a lot of us were first generation, a lot of us were HBCU graduates. So I felt connected. I had, the people I can go sit and have lunch with, or we get together, after class and go for drinks and stuff. So I had a really awesome experience as a student with my peers, and even with my peers who weren't Black, just very down to earth people, just good folks, with whom I connected to, many who helped me get jobs, and it just who just helped me along the way, period, going to conferences, doing leadership stuff. I met some of the most amazing people in my life in that program. I would definitely say that. As a student, with my professors, I want to say I had a really good experience too. However, there were some things. The struggle with being like an imposter or feeling like an imposter as a Black student, as a Black woman, wanting to research and do HBCU stuff and kind of doing you should think about doing something different, because all the Black people do the HBCU stuff, but all the Black people are from HBCUs, which, there's research about that too, but we're not going to go there today. And then the other part for me is just having these run-ins with having never gone on a conference, having had experiences with, well, why don't you know this? And some of the experiences I had as a grad student not only came from like white people, but from Black people too, who didn't understand why I didn't understand. But I'm like, how am I supposed to understand? I've never done this. There was the first time I didn't have someone who was a Black professor, and so I actually brought in someone from the outside to be on my dissertation committee when that time came. because of that connection and affirmation that I needed in some cases. Where again, there's research on mentorship and Black women in higher ed programs, or it's not even higher ed programs, doc programs and leadership. I didn't have that always to where, in undergrad at my Black school, I could go to whatever mentor I had at the time and go cry, and they'll pray with me and tell me to get it together. If I was, acting crazy, they'll tell me about myself. And I didn't have that same level of connection in graduate school with professors, although I had, for the most part, really awesome experiences with my professors because they were just good people. But I think for me, trying to figure out how I showed up and sometimes feeling like I was adequate though. And again, if I was doing research on Black stuff, feeling like you don't want to be pigeonholed. And I actually had somebody say that to me once before though. I found myself, can't believe I'm about to tell you this, but I ended up having to change my chair because I didn't feel the support that I needed. And even being somebody again is first gen, or being raised Black, and you don't question your elders, or you don't kind of go against the grain in some ways, I wasn't sure how to navigate that space, but I needed to make the progress that I was going to make. We ended up not being friends after that. Me and the first person was going to be my chair, but she didn't have my back. So I think for me, especially as a Black woman, it was trying to figure out who really had my back, especially when it came to professors, because one time I had a course and the professor told the whole class, I got mine, y'all need to get y'all's. And I was like, dang, that's how we doing out here. And so as a Black person, some of us weren't really graduating like that for real. A lot of people ended up in that, dissertation purgatory. And to even think about, are the Black people even going to get out? We're here, but are we going to get out? But I knew, honest, that I was special in a way, like I was going to get out and nothing was going to stop me. So that's what happened. But yeah, that's a long story.
Wow. There was a lot there in the multiple stories that you shared, really. Wow. And some of the things that you shared, unfortunately, I've heard, especially on this podcast, like being pushed in a different direction for your research, your dissertation topic, as if, studying Black life is not valuable. It's not appreciated, being pigeonholed too, like, okay, you don't want to go into these types of roles, or you don't want to study this because then people just see you as X.
Yeah.
Wow. And then now having to change your chair, like, how soon into the process did you have to change your chair? And I think for me, what I think some of the listeners would want to hear is, like, how did you find your voice and advocate for yourself?
Oh boy. I mean, I laugh now because I wouldn't talk about it for years because I didn't want it to ever get back, or I didn't want it to be a problem. But at this point, I'm like, we peers. We're doing different things, but it is what it is. But for me, finding my voice was realizing that somebody else was keeping me from getting the one thing that I knew that I needed and I wanted. And I had the mentality that I was going to let nothing get in my way. I had gotten too far. And again, I've seen too many people get to that dissertation purgatory where they get stuck. And because they don't want to ruffle feathers, because they don't want to make people upset, or because they want to graduate, they didn't advocate. And I don't know where I found the nerve. I think, outside of my institution, and now that I'm thinking about it, having Black faculty that I were connected to, who encouraged me to handle my business, I did that. And so what's really interesting, again, having their encouragement, their support, that was really major, because otherwise I'm not sure how I would have navigated it. So it may have gone on for maybe 2 semesters, maybe 3. It wasn't very long because I was like, sis got to go and you ain't helping. And so I made the person who was my chair a committee member, thinking, okay, I'm submitting this pre-proposal. We're going to get this thing going. They're going to get back to me. Weeks to go back, I wouldn't hear anything back. And mind you, at this point, the only thing I was working on was my dissertation for a while. Like that was it. Did comps because I wasn't working full time. I'm working on this dissertation. Let's go. I got time. So you can't say it's me and not being committed to this process. And then from that, She was still in the way. And she wasn't getting back. And I went to my then chair and I was like, this is a problem for me. I am really trying to get done. All I have is time and space and energy right now. Can we get this ball moving? And the conversation with me was to have the conversation with her, go ahead and write, a note or send an email, do something, make a connection. I'm one of those, I'm gonna handle my business how I handle my business. So I want to have a conversation with you. I'm not going to do you like that, like, just send you no message or whatever. And so, yeah, long story short, did all the paperwork. I had the support of the person that mattered the most to me. And I was able to, in my opinion, easily replace her with actually somebody who I would prefer to have work with anyway, because of just their research interest and then my genuine connection and relationship with them. And so I did it. Try to get a conversation. Wasn't getting anything back from them, no email or anything. I said, okay, cool. I'm not going to worry about it. And I don't even know at what point it happened, but I had defended my dissertation and got an email. I heard you finish your dissertation or something, and I was blah 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 blah. I was like, do you not remember these emails I sent you trying to get with you? So this is how much time it passed and all these things happening, right? And I was like, I got the email proof, and it became a thing. But I was like, all right, we're done now. But this is the thing, and I think even for me as a Black woman, I wasn't about to let a white woman get in my way. And to be in a space where, yeah, everybody except for the one person I brought from the outside was white, I knew that I had allies and people who really wanted to see me thrive. And for me, I didn't even think a lot about the white Black thing then, but I knew that there wasn't a genuine concern for me graduating and going off and to live my life. And it was this white woman who was standing in my way. So that then made me feel different and made the changes I need to make. So as hard as I have felt to talk about, it's honest because she has privilege that I don't have just by being a white woman. And I don't think that while you may want to talk about diverse issues and write about diverse things, do you really? But do you really have my back? Because do you really understand what this means right now for me to get this degree? And I don't feel like she shared that empathy. So I found people who did.
That's deep. Yes, because we have a lot of people in these spaces doing the research that they're doing, but then when you look at their behavior and their actions, they are perpetrating like some of the things that they're critiquing, which makes no sense to me. So kudos to you for having other folks who had your back and were able to help you navigate through that process. So, did your experience kind of propel you into the work that you're doing now with First Gen and supporting First Gen? And talk to us a little bit about what it is that you're doing and how you're helping First Gen students.
Thank you for that. I would say absolutely. It did. I feel like I'm doing all the things now that I didn't do then because they tell you have forever to do research and to do the things you want to do. And I found my thing, but it also took me transitioning out of higher ed full time to really find my thing. But I studied again HBCUs, civil rights movement, Black Greek letter organizations, and student affairs. So that was more so along the lines of things that I did. I was looking at first year experience, but I also kind of tapped into first gen when I learned in grad school that I was first gen. So that's a part of the story of the background there. And just that realization, wanted to do it, but then it was like there's so many things that's done, and I've always been about being unique and standing out and being memorable. So I was thinking, what kind of dissertation can I write that would definitely, bring all the pieces together? So between higher ed and getting stuck with some historical research and figuring I just need to get out, it's just like done dissertation, that's the one that you want to have. And I settled on looking at the intersection of HBCUs, residence life, and job satisfaction, and just kind of what we're making people satisfied or not dissatisfied within the work that we're doing. And so I just settled the first gen thing. So I just didn't do anything with it, but make it a memory in a journal. And looking back at it, I wish that I would have really dove more into it. But first gen wasn't hot, so much back then. And I want to say it's been the past 5 years or so that the first gen buzz outside of Trio has even picked up. But to that case, being a full time entrepreneur, and really identifying with this first gen identity, that became so obvious to me, especially in the professional world. I decided to do something about it, to create the resources and the spaces that I needed coming out of school, and navigating the real world. And so, what I do now, and I say, is I inspire, empower, and uplift first generation college students and graduates in entrepreneurship and in life. And in doing so, it's like workshops, it's building community and membership, it's podcasting, it's doing speaking engagements. So I have a lot of fun doing it, but it's a lot of work because still a lot of us don't know we're first gen. We know we went to college and nobody else went, but we still haven't identified ourselves as first gen because we may not have been a trio program. And so, to really kind of get to it, it's really creating spaces for us to continue to thrive and really continue to become the best of who we can be, because when we become adults, it's almost like this. Well, you grown now, so you figured out. Whereas when we're college students, there's so much compassion and space to fall on the ground and get back up. And when you grown, it's kind of like, well, you grown, so be responsible. But as first gens, we don't know what we don't know. And it's not like we can talk to our parents about corporate when they've never been in a corporate space. We can't talk to our parents about, you know, putting something into an IRA or 401k or some of the other things that, these benefits and being on salary and negotiating when these aren't things they've done, and realizing that was still a barrier and a hardship. I just really wanted to create a space for us to feel empowered when we show up in these spaces, that we have what we need.
Yeah, and I can totally identify with that. I say I was a first gen student, and I'm still a first gen professional.
Mhm.
Navigating through these higher ed institution streets and trying to figure it out along the way. And my parents have no idea like how to advise me, on anything related to that. So I find great value in what you're doing for sure. Now we might even have like it didn't even occur to me because the entrepreneurship route, and a lot of people kind of just think of when they get their doctorate that they would maybe teach, go to
Mhm.
research route, maybe work for a ed nonprofit org and things like that. And so what was it that inspired you to go the entrepreneurial route, and how did you get everything lined up to launch your business?
I'm an accidental entrepreneur. And I say it all the time. It was never my intention to become an entrepreneur. I was taking a year off to get myself together because I had a lot going on, physically, spiritually, emotionally, just all across the board. And I needed time to heal. And I was at home, trying to be Susie Homemaker for a couple months, and it didn't work. It's like, it's not working for me. And I was like, since I've always wanted to do motivational speaking, let me try my hand at that. Let me just see what happens with that. And the entrepreneurial bug hit me. It bit me real bad, actually. So here I am 5 years later, and really, really every day is something different. It's never a dull moment. So I didn't have a plan, to be honest with you. I didn't have a vision. I didn't have anything in mind beyond I'm just taking off for a year and, oh, well, I can just go speak. I know how to put together my workshops and go do these things. That was easy. And so I had to learn entrepreneurship. I've had to do a lot of investing in development and education. But when I realized it was a route I wanted to stay on, and I laughed because I told my husband, I was like, well, let's just see where I am at year three. And if it's not working out well at year three, then, I'll go back to work. I'll find work. And even with the challenges, it's kind of like there's always been a reason for me to keep going. So I just refuse to do anything else right now in my life. Like, I do teach adjunct online in a higher ed program. But as far as where I am in being on this path, I've had to build it as I've gone. And so for me, it's definitely been a non traditional route, but I would also say it's been one of the best things I've ever done. And now that my eyes are open, I I just wish I would have known about this sooner. I wish I would have had a clue or even an idea, or somebody would have dropped that bug on me. Like, have you thought about a business, Eve? So that I could have been doing this. But it's like they didn't get me early enough. But I'm okay with it because entrepreneurship has been the thing that has freed me the most. But it's also the only thing for which I've also used all of my degrees.
So, wow, yeah, thanks for sharing that. What would you say are 3 things that helped you succeed in your program?
Vision is one. And when I say vision, I used to always think about graduation day and what that would look like and what it felt like for me because it kept me focused and looking towards the end goal. Even so much so that I remember, and this is one of the sweetest things that ever happened. My husband, who was then just boo, Bay, boyfriend, he got me an anniversary gift and he had it engraved with Dr. Evangeline D. Blakeney on it at the time. So really being able to see these things, I didn't carry it, I didn't use it before I finished. Let me say that, but being able to have these things that made it real, and with the money he spent on this leather portfolio, I wasn't about to waste that. So with the little things that continue to like think about and see for myself, and just knowing honest seeing these moments that I'm having in my life now, that I could not get to that without the vision and without the belief that I was going to become Dr. Hudson. I thought it was going to be Dr. Blakely then, to be honest, but I'm glad it's Dr. Hudson. So we're going to talk about that in another episode. But then the other thing for me was the discipline. So it's, the discipline. So being able to say, I know I need to get this stuff done. So I need to go to the library 7 o'clock every day or 9 o'clock every day, or spend an hour or 30 minutes getting this stuff done. And while I'm overwhelmed by this idea of doing really, really big projects, okay, how can I break them down into these small chunks and bite off of it bit by bit so that I can handle this load? Because otherwise, I'm going to really burn myself out. And then I say the third thing was really community. Because again, I had some of the best classmates in the world. So shout out to the USM higher ed grads. We out here like they know college presidents now, consultants, VPs, directors, doing all kind of stuff. But they were just a life force. For me, they were. I'll tell you, at one point, I didn't have a car for a little while because my car broke down, and I never had to worry about how I was getting to school and work or even getting home because I was in Mississippi, I was in Hattiesburg. Talk about a bus line, that's not happening. And so there are little things that for me, my community helped sustain me. Just celebrating each other, spending time with each other. And again, I know I'm incredibly fortunate to have been in a program that had so many other Black women in it, to where I never felt like an odd woman out, in any case. So I would say those three things: vision, discipline, and community. Because the practical things you can learn, you can get help with APA, you can, get help with figuring out research projects. But I would say if you don't have a vision, if you lack discipline, and if you don't have community, it's just going to be that much harder, especially when you're a person of color.
Yes, those are some gems right there. Community, vision, and discipline. Okay, I love it. Thank you for that. And I think that's a great time to transition into our lightning round questions. Are you ready?
I don't know. You've been hitting me over the head all day. No, I'm ready for it. I'm definitely been enjoying this. So I'm ready. Let's go.
Awesome. Okay, I'll take it easy on you, but these are quick things that come to mind when you think of your doctoral journey. I'm going to ask you something and you just say the first thing that comes to mind. So, the first thing is what was your favorite mantra?
I inspire to aspire. Well, no, I aspire to inspire. That's what I say. I aspire to inspire.
Oh, I like that.
I aspire
I
to inspire.
aspire to inspire. I love it. Okay, awesome. One thing you couldn't live without.
Oh no, my cell phone at the time. Oh no, my MacBook Pro Macy, Poe, baby, she's gone. But that laptop, I still have her. So,
Aw.
and she just sits. She don't do nothing. She just sits. But I could not live without that. Because that got me through everything. Even text messages and stuff when you ain't have your phone. So shout out to
Mhm.
Mac.
I love that you named it too. I love that.
Yeah,
Macy.
Macy. Mhm.
Okay, I need to name mine. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Favorite hype song?
I don't want you to judge me. Um, told you I was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, so I was in the deep south. But Boosie set it off.
I'm not judging. Whatever it takes,
Okay.
okay?
I don't know what made me fall in love with that, but yeah, that's the one. Like, you gotta get me hype.
I never thought Boosie would make it onto this podcast. Thank you for
I am who I am.
Okay.
Told you I am who I
I
am.
love it. I love it. Your go-to practice for celebrating your wins.
I love hamburgers. So I didn't drink like that back then. I hadn't learned about wine for real. So I used to go get hamburgers and, like go out to eat to go win. We'll go celebrate stuff. So
Okay. Awesome. And who had your best hamburgers over there? You remember?
girl, there was a spot called Mug Shots in
Ah.
Mississippi in Hattiesburg. And oh my gosh, like I think that's what made me really fall in love with hamburgers. They had such good hamburgers. So yeah, it's called Mug. Shout out to Mug Shots. If y'all ever hit it,
Shout
send
out.
us some food.
I know, right?
And they had these beer French fries, beer crusted French fries, but you didn't get that beer. Man, I'm about to go down there now. I enjoyed that.
Awesome. I've never been. Okay, so now I have to add that to my list. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're a foodie too, so yeah, you have to. That's one place.
I
Yeah,
I love food. Oh my gosh.
I told you, just we sisters out here for
We
real.
are. So many similarities. Okay, and then the last thing, best piece of advice you've received, that helped you through your doc program.
Mm. I'm going to go back to what I shared earlier about it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Mm.
So whatever it is that, you may say this degree, this class, this thing doesn't really matter. It's not that important, but you just never know where the road of life is going to take you. And, it's kind of like the cliche, it's better to stay ready, than have to get ready. So yeah, but it's better to have it in need it than not have it. Yeah, what I said. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. There we go.
Love it. Awesome. I am so glad that you were on the show today and you shared so many gems that I think will help a lot of people. And I want to make sure that people know how to connect with you, how they can follow you, how they can listen to your podcast, which is one of my favorites that I listen to. So, do you mind sharing how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. So, if you in the car or if you're at the gym, whatever, go ahead and do whatever beat in your head. And I'm about to give it to you. So it's EVEHUDSONPHD.
I love that rhythm. Okay. On everything, right?
Everything.
Instagram,
Yep.
Twitter, awesome.
LinkedIn, Clubhouse, everywhere. Yep.
And then her podcast is the First Gen Lounge podcast. Definitely check it out. Great conversations with other folks who have navigated the process as a first gen. You could talk better about
Mhm.
it than I can, but yeah, definitely check out the First Gen Lounge podcast, where you can hear more from Dr. Eve and where she drops knowledge about being a first gen student and uh, getting the cheat code to finishing your program.
I like that cheat code thing.
You
That
like that?
works. That's good. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and borrow that right there, sis. I'm gonna get that one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today and have a good one.
You are welcome. Thank you. And continue to do what you do. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's necessary. And I have truly enjoyed myself with you today.
Thank you. Have a good one.